we're staring at the very real possibility of being able to just tell a model, here's the OSHA manual, go find this stuff, and it can.
Well, hey team, welcome back to the Built Different podcast. We've got a couple new faces in here today. Very excited for this conversation with Matt Daly and Josh Canner. So, fellas, thanks for joining in. Not the normal crew with Brian and Jarvis, but good to have two new fresh faces in here.
Good to be here.
Likewise,
Matt,
let's do it.
You're blending in with your background there. We were saying it off screen, but we can barely. No, we're just giving you a hard time. Need to give you a black shirt. Usually we rock the black shirts here in the podcast world, but. Yeah, Josh, very excited to have you on. We have so much stuff to cover. We're going to just jump right into it and just really excited to have you on. I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. You can't sneeze without saying AI these days. And so we figured we'd bring in our best expert on that topic. And yeah, just thankful to have you in. You've been on a couple other podcasts too, which if you haven't Googled Josh Canner, quickly do that to find out his background and see some of his expertise. But Brian, I'm going to kick it over to you to get us started and let's get moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Josh, big fan of your work. I've been following you for a while, even back in the SmartVid days when I thought it was extremely interesting how, like, instead of even like a demo request, you could just upload your data and get the results back. And that was actually one of my most inspiring. I was like, wow, if only more companies could do things like this. But I guess really what came after that is, knowing what to do with the data that I now had, processed through the company is I just kind of want to talk about product market fit, specifically because AI is not new to you. By any means, you didn't, ChatGPT didn't get released. Now you're an AI expert on LinkedIn. I remember even taking a course on AGI, back when I was still in school. So not that long ago, but still not as recent as this year. So I kind of want to get your perspective on product market fit as a whole. A lot of people have been building AI companies, but is the market ready? And especially for an industry like construction, do you think construction is ready?
Yeah, there's a lot to go into the answer to that question, Brian. I would first of all start by saying I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, and thanks Grant and Jarvis and Brian and Matt Daly. Maybe thanks to you too, but I'm not so sure about that. But really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys. It's this conversation about AI is definitely a long time coming. And in some ways, I feel like there's still a lot more of that story to be written, Brian. If I look back at my career in software, it was kind of interesting. Grant, I was looking at the Built Different podcast as I was getting ready to come on here, and I saw a bunch of names I remembered and have worked with over the years. But then I also just saw this really disturbing trend that everyone seems to be a lot younger than me now. I don't know what the heck is going on, but like all your guests seem to be like super young.
Don't believe that, Josh. That's not true. We don't publish our ages, but no.
I'm getting older. Everyone's getting younger. But my point in saying that is that we've been on a journey in construction over the last 2 decades, and I'm very fortunate to have been a part of 2 technology shifts that have really impacted our industry. The first was a combination of cloud and mobile, moving Novella Systems days and then BIM 360 to actually using mobile devices like iPads in the field to do data capture. And now in the last 10 years, the question has been, how can we now, as we're capturing increasingly more and more digital data, not just from iPads, but also from reality capture, field mobility, 360, spherical cameras, drone, like all of this data, how do we actually make use of it? And that's, Brian, where the whole concept behind SmartVid, which became Numetrics, came about, is working with our contractor and owner customers, friends of mine in many cases, that we'd worked together for years, making construction tech work in the field and saying, all right, how do we unlock value from all this digital data we're gathering and really only using once? I actually just did a webinar in a different context, and somebody dug up the old FMI study. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one, the FMI study that says that in construction, we use 96% of the digital data we gather is used once and then never touched again.
That's
96%.
uninspiring there. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
we got some room to grow there.
we do. We do. And
The,
yeah, so
the
Brian, that was like the
2020
reason why we wanted also, I mean, in construction, where it's, we're a show me industry, right? Not a tell me industry. So you gotta like really show people how stuff works and how it can help them deliver projects more effectively. And so that's always been our approach, especially with AI, which frankly it's been around for now 10 years. I mean, 14 years. 2011, the first deep neural network won basically the vision competition that is
Image
run
Snap.
out of California. Thanks. And now we're still talking about it. 7 years ago, Sundar Pichai of Google called AI more important than fire or electricity in the history of mankind. And that was before we even got to ChatGPT. So, like, we're in a perpetual hype cycle with AI, and it's a question of how well it's getting. And now, having worked with it for 10 years, I believe the killer apps for AI are when you don't even know it's AI that's there.
I think what's crazy is like, and I say this now, of course, under the context of you saying, "Hey, all your guests are really young." I hate even maybe teeing this up, but it's like it's so interesting that because I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, man, I could ask you a million questions. You've been in this space for so much longer than people have probably even considered this idea. And like the product market fit stuff, I think Brian, that you're like kind of curious to dive into too. We talk about this all the time. Is like, hey, right tool, wrong time. Like, do you feel like that was like the case with some of the like things you were doing in Smart Vid to like because you just have so much more context to I think this bigger idea. But yeah, maybe like touch on that maybe.
I mean, the story of entrepreneurship in any industry, but especially in construction, where just our clock speed is in our industry is really slow. Like if you think of a clock speed being like a business cycle, when you particularly with field tech, right? You're going out or any job site tech, which is most of what we all do. It has to be used on a job site to actually generate value. The cycle time is 24 to 36 months to actually finish a job, right? So you get out and that's not an investor SaaS software traditional friendly, time frame. And I see Matt smiling because we've had this conversation before. Like it's our industry is really hard. There are some companies out there that are, overnight successes that have been at it, they went public and they've been at it for 17 years. It's a tough industry. This is a tough industry to get what you can call traditional SaaS metrics in. And it's also an industry where like the expression, you'll hear a bunch of cliches in the technology world, right? And one of them, actually is one of my board members once said, they're cliches because they're true. Um, and one of them is being early. There's very little difference between being early and being dead. And I think in the AI world, it's particularly interesting because, and we'll probably touch on this later, the underlying technologies have improved so much in the last really 5-6 years. The stuff that we did and the product we could create and the amount of investment that it took to create it for computer vision back in the smart vid days and numeric days, it's radically transformed now and it's much better output at much lower cost.
Yeah,
So
you're
the
definitely teeing
goal
up Matt here for his kind of
Totally.
or
The
Brian, do you want
fundamentals
to
are completely different in terms of like what does it mean to be early? Just in terms of what we could use to build.
Brian, anything you want to add before? I know Matt's
I
chomping at the
want
bit
I
up
wanted
there.
to ask a fun question, but I'll let Matt go with it.
Come on, ask the
Yeah,
fun
ask
question.
away.
So let's say, for example, I was listening to a podcast Tui from Procore was on, and he was talking about the early days of Procore where they would actually bring routers, like he would pay for routers and bring them to job sites because some job sites just didn't have internet to run what they like. This was early days, and like I was curious in some of the early days, what was some of the craziest things you've ever had to do in this scenario? Like I'm sure there's always, I remember,
Dude, I have lots of stories. We like I got started in 2000 and actually end of 2004, but going into 2005, we had products running on tablet PCs for punch listing in the field and QA/QC. Actually, in 2005, 2006, we had the first PDF viewer for a tablet PC that allowed multiple field users to work simultaneously on the same PDF, disconnected from the internet, and then it synchronized all their push pins together so you could get like a live look at your punch listing, then color coded it by subcontractor or trade, you know? So we saw a lot of stuff, particularly with those tablet PCs. We had to provide them. So we actually had to sell tablet PCs. And one of my favorite stories of the time is we were down in South Florida trying to explain to an owner that the tablet PC, because the first thing people said when they looked at it is, it's not rugged enough. It's going to break in 2 seconds on a job site. Remember, this is 2005, 2006. So my co-founder, Adam Romansky, and I, we were in the room in this luxury high-rise in downtown Miami showing tablet PCs to a developer. And Adam puts his arm out to the side. He goes, "It's really durable. Let me show you." And he drops it. The thing bounces off of the carpet and goes and sticks itself in the wall of the conference room.
I feel like there's always those
Pulled it out. He pulled it out, and our software was still working. We were like, "Yeah, it's pretty durable."
That was like
now,
almost
like,
your,
was
almost your, like Elon Musk like throws the metal ball through the window of your like.
Yeah.
Only in your case, it didn't shatter and totally explode.
No, we actually we caused basically a punch list item in his conference room. So, but yeah, and then and that's again back to the timing question, Brian. Like when we started that company, there was no iPad. It wasn't until 4 years later that when Apple came out with that form factor, it solved a lot of the really big problems that we had in construction around mobility. Battery life went from 2 hours to 9 hours. Weight went from 4 pounds. Like these dudes in Florida were wearing them with like straps and getting all sweaty just so that they could, streamline closeout. That dropped. Actually having a way to deploy SaaS software, through an app store, the whole distribution method changed. The ability to process and interact through a touch screen changed. Like it really paved the way for unlocking field mobility in our industry. It's actually a little known fact. I'll shut up, but a little known fact that Apple actually did a whole case study on construction based on the use of iPads using with Vela systems, and then BIM 360 as the first apps.
I'm gonna say it's so interesting. Like first, if you're listening, because I keep going back to this, Josh, I gotta speak to the young crowd on here too.
Yeah.
I know what Vela Systems is, so I maybe have some gray hairs in the backside of my hair. But if you don't know the story of Vela Systems or SmartVid, or like you're listening, like what are these names you're talking? You gotta go Google, do some. I mean, obviously, we're gonna get your kind of thoughts and commentary to them, but they are like transformational tools to the industry. That, to your point, is it's fascinating that it was building it before its time really blossomed, and that's obviously where we're kind of in now. And Matt, I guess I want to hand it to you too, because I know you're curious to kind of dive into that as well, of the transition of like Vela got acquired by Autodesk and became BIM 360 Field, and so Matt, take it from here, because we're continuing down the track of Josh's illustrious background here.
Josh will never give himself this nickname, so I'll just give him this nickname, which is I'm gonna call him the Godfather of AI for construction tech.
Hey, there it is.
He's got like the beard and like he's the old man. Like he's the Godfather of AI for contact. And yeah, I guess maybe for those that don't know, what was SmartVid and ultimately became to be known as Numetrics was this software that was one of the first ones we really saw like actually using machine learning and early AI tools to extract data from this massive amount of information. You guys are tackling safety because that was, basically, like it's one of the most important problems, as you've said before, we are still solving in construction today. And like one of the things that I think would be so fascinating to talk about, and why I was excited to hop on here and talk with you, is like, take us through the data, the tooling, the humans that you would have needed and that you did need to build Numetrics and SmartVid, and contrast that with today. Like what is the delta that you're seeing? And like obviously we can kind of take that into your world here at Oracle, and it's actually really funny to me, Josh. You I know you've been at Oracle for a little while. 'Cause you're saying clock speed is and business cycle as a way of like these are like computer terms that like only people in the like data center slash compute space would be talking about clock speed. But I totally get where you're coming from. But I think that's like that's what I think I would love to learn more about. Is like take us through data tooling, human capital, and labor before, and like what you need to do now. Like how would you rebuild new metrics today, and like what would that look like?
Yeah, it's a fascinating, it's a really interesting story. And whether you're looking at it from a context standpoint because you want to be using the technologies, or you're thinking about this as somebody who's an entrepreneur or founder who's thinking about product market fit and how they build. It's the story of AI over, particularly in the computer vision world, over the last 7-8 years has been a really interesting one. Because when we started down the road to build Smart Vid, and which became Numetrics, Site, and Drone Deploy were really important partners to us, because what we were looking to do, which is always the name of the game I found in construction, is how can you provide as much value as you can with as little, or maybe even taking away, if possible, work from the field. So how do you unlock value and actually make less work, because there's so much to do. So by tapping into the digital data we could get from Site, we saw, as well as other progress capture methods from the Jobsite, we saw that there was a way to be able to actually understand from images, not that, Grant Hagen was about to, was about to step into a hole, or like you were about to poke yourself in the eye because you weren't wearing, safety glasses. It wasn't about the real time aspects of it. It was that the imagery actually told you a story about the job. It told you if work at height was going on. It told you what, if you were in a particular part of the work, and these are all examples actually, that you were going into demo, whereas maybe you didn't know that demo was starting that day, but it was all of a sudden you were in demo. What kinds of equipment was on site, which gave you more information about the kinds of things that were going on. And these factors, and this was the key thing for us, these factors, we partnered with some of our early customers, including firms like Suffolk Construction, and we compared what was in images from 10 years, a decade of Suffolk's data, to what were the outcomes on site in terms of safety, near misses, and incidents. And we were able to actually see that if you've got data from photos and you can combine it with other data, including things like who's on site, foreman versus trade partner labor, what the weather is, your safety observations program, you can actually get a pretty good statistically significant feel on what your safety risks were. And so that started us on this journey, Matt. Like we went on this journey because we saw that, there's value in the images complementing other data that you can gather from site. And the tools we had to build computer vision, this is now back 8 years ago, 7-8 years ago, were all in the realm of what's called deep neural networks or convolutional neural network type based approaches. It's what what we now call classic AI, comparing it with generative AI these days, like the chat GPTs in the world. Things have completely changed. So since Gen AI has come out and these large language models have come out, and I sitting where I sit at Oracle, I get to work with the entire Oracle construction and engineering team, which is great. A lot of folks don't know, or if they do know, they may be only tangentially associated at Oracle, but Oracle is Primavera P6. Oracle is Oracle Primavera Cloud for scheduling. It's Textura for subcontractor payments. It's Unifier, which is one of the world's, if not the world's leading owner capital program and project control system. It's Aconex, which is the leading product for document controls and engineering documents, and overall construction project delivery. And then last but not least, we have a product called Construction and Engineering Intelligence, which I get the pleasure of running, which is about how we can use all the data from those systems and third-party systems to try and capture and unlock basically insights into risk. So sitting at Oracle, I get to work with those products, but then also, and I'm winding my way towards a point here, I also get to work with Oracle as a tech company. So Oracle, we're a massive company, 150,000 employees. We just had an earnings call, over $57 billion in annual revenue. A lot of that revenue comes from our tech stack. Oracle is a database company. We're now actually one of the top hyperscalers providing AI and GPU compute. So my point is, sitting inside Oracle, I actually get to work not just with my construction and engineering peers and colleagues, but also with the tech stack. So I get to see a lot of what we're doing in terms of AI. And that AI stack today with generative AI is allowing us to do things that back in the old SmartVid days, Nummetrics days, would have taken thousands of images to train up dedicated computer vision models. And we wound up building a little over 100 of these. Now you can, with vision model, you'll hear them called large vision models. It's a variant of generative AI, large language models. You can now, instead of having to train it with images, you can actually prompt it to look for things, and it can go off and find them with remarkably high accuracy. So it's a really fascinating moment in the development of the technology. I have to say, as the former founder and entrepreneur and investor in my own company, it's a little painful because we spent a lot of money with a lot of people building 100 models, and now we're staring at the very real possibility of being able to just tell a model, here's the OSHA manual, go find this stuff, and it can. And that's a massive unlock for our industry in terms of capabilities, because we can finally start doing what folks have always wanted, which is, a safety person sees 2,000 to 3,000 things when they walk around. We came up with that number working with safety folks, walking around job sites. Having only 100 of them only goes so far. So we're in a really exciting time where the tech, particularly around computer vision now, these large language models are now becoming multimodal, and you can train it like you do a person, as opposed to having to train it like a really complicated piece of tech.
I think that's really the thing, right? It's like thousands of models tagged by, I'm assuming you had a team of people that were tagging these things in most cases, and just massive amounts of investment that, again, when we did similar things at Struction Site, we nowhere near as sophisticated as what you guys are doing, I will say. But at the same time, I think that's the big shift we're seeing as well, which is I was, again, excited to have you come on and talk about it. I'd love to hear, even at a more granular level, what were some of the things you learned at Nummetrics SmartVid that you're sort of carrying forward into how you guys build products and think about that today at Oracle?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm happy to share. I think it's also back to Brian's original question about product market fit and timing and stuff. There's market readiness, right? But then there's also technical capability. And both are maturing now at the same time, particularly in this very broad category of AI for construction, right? The story I like to tell, Matt, about this, how things have changed, is that, like Struction Site did, we were tagging and labeling imagery to help train models. And the way you do that is you have a tagging and labeling team that actually goes and says, okay, this is what a worker at height on a ladder looks like, and this is what a trench looks like. Here's a hole. It's an unacceptably wide diameter. It's an exposed hole. That's another risk. Training up a whole bunch of these things. The interesting moment we're at right now is those same booklets that we use to tell a person what to look for, we can just give to the vision model.
Nice.
And it finds it.
Yeah.
So we're at a point now where we can actually, just to make it real, we can actually scale what the capabilities of the tech are to meet the needs of our industry. And if you're going to give me the Godfather of AI title, I would, I appreciate that. But I really do try hard to pull out the hype from AI, because I think AI is at its best when we're barely noticing it. And so if you pull out your phone and you search for your photos in in iOS or in Android, you're using computer vision AI, right? That's just a feature. Spell check, autocorrect, those are all AIs, and you're going to have the ability to push a button and generate a schedule from an RFP pretty soon. And that's just going to be AI and not going to be something scary that you have to go off and try and find. It's just going to be a part of the scheduling products that you use, just like autocorrect is. And I think that's where you're going to, see the fear go down and the power in the utility go up.
Josh, I see the field team's fear going up on a schedule created by an AI, and I see some fears going down, and I see some fears rising very rapidly. Not that anybody would be held accountable to building to that necessarily, but I see what you're saying. And look, I'm on the same side as you. I'm trying to play both sides here. As like on one side, we're like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. On another side, you're like, that sounds unbelievable that you could even imagine taking an
No one's saying that the schedule is going to be 100% right, but it's much better than finding an old one, copying it, changing the name, looking for the activities you want to replace, redoing all the predecessor successor relationships, like getting the dates. Like there's a lot of room to run to get a lot of the really dumb stuff out of, and time wasting stuff out of a lot of the processes that we have in our industry. And then and then even beyond that, the whole point of Numetrics, and now where I sit at Oracle, is that it's not just about saving time, that this data we have really can unlock best practices. It can unlock insights that are just not possible because we as humans, we can only keep a few things in our head. But there's hundreds, thousands of things that happen on job sites, happen in schedules, happen in procurement logs, happen in our document and design revisions. No person can keep all that in mind, but an AI can be looking at all those things and highlighting them for you and help you focus on the ones that you should be worrying about on Monday morning so that you can handle those. And then by handling them in priority order, you can do things like reduce your incident rate. Contractors like Bolt and Suffolk and others are on the record of doing to the tune of 60% in the first 12 to 18 months. Because now you can focus on the stuff that it's not an AI, it's actually the knowledge of safety professionals that's been baked into a system, but now it can look at not 2 or 3 or 4 things. It can look at 100 things every Sunday and tell you what you need to worry about. And so it's those two values, saving time and making better decisions that let us lead to better project and portfolio outcomes. Those, as they get built into how we work in construction, are really are already unlocking a lot.
Well, Matt, I know
I have
you're
a million more questions. You can't just let me sit here and ask them.
I mean,
what you got, Grant? What you got, Jarvis?
It is actually refreshing to have someone who asks more questions than I do, because these two, Brian and Jarvis, know that I probably use up the 8 of the 10 question quota before I even get to them. But yeah, Jarvis, chime in here, buddy. I know you are burning some ears too.
Well, I guess, Josh, the main question I've got is kind of around, like earlier you talked about, we use data once throughout the project lifecycle. How is it that AI could help us? Is it some sort of, it becomes an active partner as opposed to a passive observer? It presents data. What do you see AI's role in getting the data leveraged more? Because we have oodles and oodles of data in our projects, pictures and videos and models and plans and specs and submittals. How do we get AI to kind of push that and give you the data you need when you need it so that it's a proactive partner with it?
Yeah, I think the core concept here that that engineers that you understand is a concept of signal to noise. Signal is valuable, like valuable information to be able to actually get a register of the behavior of a system, and noise is just shit you shouldn't worry about, right? So if you're able to do things like understand the safety outcomes across a whole time series. We started, like I mentioned, originally with Suffolk with 10 years. We're now at 10,000 years of data that we've analyzed. 10,000, it's 100 centuries of safety outcomes. you start to be able to understand, Jarvis, signal and noise, because you're trying to get to the concept of what of all of the signal you could gather from photos to payroll data. So the makeup of who's on the job, to what the weather was historically, to what's the health of your safety program, how many observations are you doing per man hour work, man hours, which you're taking from your dailies. What you then can do is actually understand what's important to measure, because it's highly correlated, highly predictive around your outcomes that you care about. And then you go back and that's the data you get. You don't get everything, because who needs everything? There's a lot of noise there. But once you know what kind of data can be useful, whether it's predicting safety or predicting schedule outcomes or cost or quality or collaboration, which are all things we're working on right now at Oracle, it helps you understand of that 90. I'm not saying you should use all 96% that FMI says goes unused. There's a certain amount of that data, though, like your payroll data, it's useful for more than payroll. Your training data, it's useful for more than just understanding whose certifications are elapsed or not. It's all related to how well you can actually deliver a particular project in, across the dimensions of safety, cost, schedule, quality.
Do you think that that's typical across multiple company? Like that's not a unique per company type deal, or is it, hey, like any company can plug and play? Like if you come to the table with this type of data, you're gonna get like actionable insights, not just. Is that? Would you say that's true?
It is. It is. The key part though, Grant, and you can't minimize this, is that the data is the outcome of how you're running your shop. Right?
Yeah.
Like data doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like your safety program, for example, creates observations or checklist outcomes. And oftentimes people in our industry, and I think in the tech world too, they point to AI and data and they say it's like the magic thing that's going to help unlock everything, but it's not. You have to start with how you run your job, how you run your company, and that then your data profile is a reflection of that. There's no replacement for operational, rigor and leadership around whether it's safety or schedule management. Your data is going to be a reflection of that. But it turns into this super interesting dynamic, and I've seen this now over 2 decades in construction, is that, all companies are all different. Contractors, owners, they run their firms differently, different perspectives, and even job to job is different. You got to figure when you start focusing on data, you start realizing how those differences may actually impact your overall performance. And you start seeing how having consistency in your data, which is really consistency in your process, how that can be really important.
Yeah, there's a whole trail to go down on that one, but maybe to stay at the trailhead of some ways to tease the trail. Like it is so interesting to hear though that like a lot of companies, call it CIOs, call it folks that are in those like data strategy positions, are like, well, data should define our process. But then I feel like what you're kind of alluding to is like process gives you data, right? It gives you like outcomes from the, so like it is this interesting marrying of the two, that like there are outcomes, there are processes that give you data outcomes, right? But then you also want to analyze that data to then improve your processes, right? So like, is it really kind of like yin yang? Like you got to look at both. Like, 'cause I've heard more people obviously get on stages, talk about whatever, like elevate one more than the other. But I guess maybe, do you have any thoughts to that?
It is. I don't want to come across as wishy-washy. I think I would say like the number one thing is how you run your job. Like and your data is a reflection of that. You can get, and we have actually contributed to, we as Oracle are participants in, for example, in CII, and we are participants in the safety committee of CII. We've contributed benchmarks to that committee, contribute to this broader conversation around safety, because Grant, some of the benchmarks drive the right behavior.
Right.
Right. But I would never say that you can, with any credibility, stand in front of an operations leader at a construction company and say, tell your people to gather this data because then things will go right. That's not the way it works. You have to have a process, even observations. Actually, the former head of safety for Bolt, Scott Fraser said it really well, and the Lithgow guys would say similar things. They'd say your observation program is a reflection of not the program, but of the health of the conversations you're having on site. You can collect really shitty observations in a safety program, and that actually, it's not going to help you. They need to be good observations. By the way, you can measure that too. But it needs to be a part of the way you're actually delivering safety. It's the operations piece that should drive it. Now, where you focus, the data can tell you that, because there's certain best practices that you want to follow. But if you're not actually doing it, like if you're just gathering it to gather data, then it's worthless.
Total. I chuckle, and I'm going to mute myself because I know I could go off on a riff on this one, but I hear so much of like, well, let's just capture it. We don't know what we're going to do with it later. And like on the surface, I don't think that's a bad statement to make, because yeah, like, hey, like there is this balance of, hey, that can help us drive decisions later. And it is important. But I think unfortunately what that does is it overshadows the like, hey, like you don't have a strategy of what you're going to do with that. So like you just become a hoarder of data, and I don't know. Again, I don't want to, you're the expert in that. There are phrases and buzzes that I hear all the time, like, well, let's just collect it to collect it. And you're like, is that?
I have trouble with that. It has to do with my, also just my roots being in the field and working with field superintendents and foremen, and trying to, working through why, for example, you should even take a mobile device with you into the field in the first place. I was kind of chuckling, Grant, like I was looking at the drone deploy. You guys have great content. Not just these podcasts. There's also some of the, one-on-one interviews. I saw you had one with Albert Zolps. He's the former one of the VDC leaders from Skanska. I know him going back to 2006, 2007. And we used to do similar things in the Vela Systems days, dude. I would go out in the field with a GoPro, if you remember GoPros, and I would record a field superintendent holding a tablet PC and be like, hey, why is this useful? Because no one in the field actually believed that, you needed a piece of technology in the field. I'm holding a piece of paper, obviously, but you get the point. And talk about stories. There's some classic YouTube like outtakes that came out of that. Like the one guy asked him what the value was, and the first thing he said, it wasn't like punch listing or quality control or reduced rework. It was like, I could put all my movies on here.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. I was like, I don't think you want to say that, dude. Like,
Good. I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you want that. Yeah. My point is that telling the field to go gather data is not a winning approach. It's there needs to be something in it for them. And if you can connect safety and data collection to measurable like outcomes that they get, like, oh, I'm getting insights and predictions around where I should focus. And unless we're all doing this together, we're not going to hit our targets. It's then a two-way flow. It's actually coming back to the field, and you can actually, in the field, so you can actually see why the data is important, and you can see your incident rate dropping. You can see basically your better predictability for your schedule. You can track progress. Like you guys live and breathe this, right? And it's only by connecting that back to the field. That's why I went on that detour about the guys in the field. Then data is useful.
We've hit on a lot. I feel like with just some guests that we've had on here is like, it's, the first wave is like getting aerial and ground data in, will be kind of called unified, right? The second wave is like, how do you automate that capture, which is really even, I would say, progressing pretty fast, even just more from the hardware side of what capabilities are there. Everyone wants to sprint to the intelligent part. Like if you don't have 3, 4, 5, 6 deliverables and outcomes come from the capture that you're doing or the data collection that's happening out in the field, like it almost becomes irrelevant. And you're like, hey, I cannot, continue to invest in that. Obviously automation steps into that too, but Matt, it looked like did you want to add something in there?
No, I guess one comment, and then we'll try to take us to the end here and maybe talk about the future a little bit. I think, yeah, what you're saying, Grant, is, and I think the way I see what you're saying is it starts with, and it should start with, let's just collect lots of data. That's fine. But it's like a maturity thing. At some point, you actually do need to process it, evaluate it. You see where your gaps are. You see, I was able to learn these things. I got these things. Now I need to go back to the process of what are we collecting and revamp that process and maybe collect less, collect more. do what you need to do. And like, that seems to be like the cycle we're trying to create here. So I think it's fine for, and a lot of, frankly, a lot of companies in our space need to just start. They just need to start somewhere and not be afraid of what that would look like, and be okay with the fact that they will just collect something, and then they will mature that process by then like seeing what the something got them, go back and then revamp the process of like, what are they collecting. So I think as long as it's a sort of circular pattern and a cycle, that can be really useful. Josh, what I'm wondering, and maybe this is us wrapping this up here, is like, yeah, based on what you are seeing right now, if you were to peer around the corner, like what is the most interesting and exciting thing you see in AI right now that you think could actually impact construction in the next 12 months?
Yeah. There's a lot, Matt.
What a question.
Yeah.
What top two even, maybe even just top one? Like what?
Yeah, I think so I would point to a trend and give a couple examples. And the trend that I see, and this has a lot to do also with where I sit at Oracle. One of our core product philosophies is to embed AI into the core workflows of our technologies. And that trend I'm seeing start to bear fruit across many Oracle products as well as others in the industry. And it's that these powerful time-saving and insight-generating capabilities are actually coming to our users where they work. And so whether it's like and forgive me here, I'll mention a few Oracle products, but like if you're using Oracle Fusion which is it's ERP, cloud-based ERP for construction and engineering, you can push a button and AI can help generate your lateral performance reviews for you. It's not a third-party product you have to pull in. AI can help generate, basically do supply chain logistics planning for you. It's all starting to come in the system. Closer to home, you can in the Textura payments product. If a trade partner has a bunch of questions that they often do, like, why am I not paid? Why am I not getting paid? Or what do I need to do? You don't have to call anybody anymore. If you're a Textura trade partner, you can just push a button and there's a Gen AI that's tied to your data and wired into the security model of Textura so that you as a trade partner can find out without having to bother anybody that there's a specific, for example, release form that you forgot to sign, or there's some documentation that you did, or maybe maybe they need to use drone deploy because the progress documentation hasn't been fully submitted yet. So there's so many to count. I would focus more, Matt, on this macro level trend. And you're seeing it in drone deploy products as well. Like you guys are starting to release more and more AI that's just there. And frankly, just back to the godfather of AI topic, like we can pull out some of the hype from the room and actually put real product in people's hands and they can use it, and we can actually, capitalize on some of the value that this technology is delivering.
Embedded AI that works where you work.
Exactly.
I think it's so fast. Your note on like just spell check, and I know that's such a simple like example, but it is true. It's so interesting that again, when that came out, everyone's like, no, I can probably spell check. I know how to spell, and it's correcting them, and Grammarly became a thing, and that's like, I think incredible. It is interesting that the best AI is the one that you don't know. But what's so counterintuitive is to all the startup-y, markety vibes is like, it's gotta be fied. It's gotta be, sparkleified. It's gotta be like, throw your AI on there. If it doesn't have it at the end of your new product, like it's gotta be questioned. It's just, I don't know. It's fascinating to hear kind of your thought to that too, because yeah, I mean, the best stuff, and kudos to Apple, right? Of like just making stuff work. Like it just gotta work. And sometimes that just doesn't, I don't know, get elevated to some ways that it should.
Yeah, and it's a technology maturity issue too. Like, yes, for a while we had to slap a Copilot, thing on the side because that was the way the two softwares could talk, right? But those smarts of that kind of generative AI can actually be baked in. You shouldn't have to go to a chat window to get a lot of the capabilities that those large language models can create. But really, LLMs are just one in a long series. I like to just they're like waves hitting the beach, right? Like we're sitting like we're consumers, things are just coming in. It was speech, then computer vision, then you know, a whole bunch of stuff like natural language, NLP, now LLMs, now large vision model. Like there's all kinds of crazy stuff coming. I think the next unlock, Matt, will be, just to answer your question really specifically, it's as GPTs get trained on design documents, right? Like we still haven't really crossed that threshold well in our industry. Like, can it actually understand not just what's in the title block, but like what is in the drawings, right? And how across a set, and how can it keep that in its head and then, you know, help us estimate, help us understand the risks of this job versus prior ones that maybe we've seen, and more. And right now I feel like GPTs are only like, they're kind of limited in terms of how useful they can be to us in design and construction, because they're not getting the full picture. They're only getting the written picture, not the digital design picture. And
trained on the public internet, but not the mountain of private how to build buildings data.
there's some good stuff out there, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some good, you know, automation of like basically on-screen takeoff automation and other like kind of rudimentary estimating stuff, but it's still not where it could go. And you know, with the right people doing the right stuff.
Man, so fascinating, Josh. These guys know I love a good analogy. I'm going to steal the beach wave analogy, just because I was thinking of the waves crashing upon our construction shore. That we need some love. We need some surfing happening in construction to ride the wave and not be intimidated by it. It's like, hey, you're going to crash. You're going to probably learn and catch the next one. And it is. That's a good way to
wait. Don't wait. You know, 24 to 32 months to till your job is done to try and understand how well a technology is working.
So I try to end episodes with this. The question just, it feels like it's kind of become synonymous with I don't know, our guests that we have on, but like, what would you say to folks that are maybe on the fence about things, maybe are a little bit more hesitant about things? Like what would you say to, I don't know, I don't want to call them the non-gray hairs, the young folks coming up into the industry, but like, what would you say to folks that are maybe on that hesitancy side of like, hey, these tools, they're never going to impact me. They've let me down before. I'm not seeing the value that come from them. Like, how would you encourage them and your knowledge that you've kind of gotten to see?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say before you start any technology journey, understand what value it is you're trying to create. I think in our industry, we do a pretty bad job of structuring those kinds of feedback loops. I've been in a bunch in my career that were all about real value, and then we demonstrated it, and then somebody said, well, we got to talk to Joe, the superintendent, and see what he says. If he likes it, we'll move forward. You know, like we have a tough time allowing ourselves in our industry to actually see value and push it forward. So that'd be my first instruction is get tight around what does it mean to actually have a better tool, and then relentlessly try stuff and pursue it until you get the tool that does that thing, because it definitely exists.
Well said. Jarvis, Matt, anything else before we land the plane here with Josh?
Jarvis, go. I mean, I could talk to Josh for hours, but we only got 1 hour for this. So Josh, thanks for joining us, man. This is super fun.
Anytime. Yeah. I remember when there was nobody in contact. So I always love coming on these things. I feel like there's a party, and I got to be there at the beginning, and now it's a big party, and I get to keep coming back.
Can't wait for us to make the movie trailer with your face on it, Josh, of the Godfather of AI.
It's like see old school. Maybe we can get Will Ferrell. I don't know.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice. Josh, man, really appreciate your time. It's fun just to sit and, I don't know, just be under your wisdom. I think there's so much it's so cool to think of the products that you've touched, and honestly, the people that have been impacted by that. We're telling you before we hit record in some ways of like, I did not know your background and experience into some of these things that, you know, help put me in a position to try to learn and grow and help, you know, people on a job site improve their lives. And, you know, now we call that AI, but it's taken on many forms over the years, and it's cool to see your history with it.
I appreciate it. This industry is full of a lot of folks like you guys. Like, we're all trying to improve the industry, push it forward, and do so, you know, with people that we like to work with and don't mind having a coffee or beer with. I think that's one of the best things about our industry is what can speak, kind of honestly to each other over a beer and just try and make stuff work.
Come on, love it. Well, appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for the folks that are tuning in and listening. If you haven't done your research on Josh, please go do
Google
some.
me, though, you may find like a chiropractor in New Jersey, so that is not it's a different one.
No, we'll put links to all your stuff in there. Yeah, we can not chiropractor Josh.
No,
That is not the right
he
one.
might be a orthodontist or something.
There
Not
it is.
Josh Canner, no.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Josh, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for tuning in with us and hopping on, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks,
Take care, guys. Bye.